Due to time, now we are moving to our last segment of this today's session, and we have Dr. Vaneshri Pillay, who is the specialist at policy benchmarking, monitoring, and research, which is also known as BPBMR at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Pillay will be guiding us on the encouraging responsible usage of AI in higher education. Just allow me to introduce Dr. Pillay shortly. I'll just quickly go through her bio quickly. Dr. Pillay obtained her PhD in 2021 from Wits University at the Wits Business School, where her research explored the bicultural life experiences and career orientation of South African Indian women engineers. She has since presented her work at several international conferences, including the International Conference for Gender Relationships in Portugal, the Women in Utilities session in South Africa and in Germany, and the Barcelona Conference on Education. Her most recent paper has been submitted to the South African Journal of Higher Education and is scheduled to present at a New York conference in 2025. Dr. Pillay has served as a head judge for the postgraduate and postdoctoral research conference at the University of Johannesburg. She is actively supervises master students in the School of Education, Leadership and Management. Colleagues, allow me to welcome Dr. Pillay. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the age of AI, I'm still using paper because I'm still very old-fashioned. And I also have very bad brain fog, so please forgive me. So as I've been introduced, I'm Vaneshri Pillay. I come from the PBMR unit. I deal mainly with the university's policies, and I think one of the biggest things right now is about how to look at including or looking at AI and how we include that into our policy. So I'm going to start off. I hate these clicker things, but I'm going to have to work with it. You can see I really don't like technology. Okay, so my topic is encouraging responsible usage of AI in higher education. Okay, I think core to research and to education is that we want to make sure that there's academic integrity and that there's always a human aspect to it. Part of doing research, or the main thing of doing research, is looking at societal problems and how we apply ourselves to that. And through research, that is the way we actually can come up with recommendations, whether it's looking at it from a global level and how we then contextualize it into our current context. Okay, and what we want to cultivate in a higher education is critical thinking, very important, creativity, and ethical judgment. And I hear that word ethics all the time. I think it's something that's really, people are really talking about it a lot. And I think it's also a very difficult space to be in terms of how do we actually motivate for this to happen? How do we actually get people to start thinking ethically and, carrying themselves ethically when they are doing scientific research? So just a funny story, when we were talking about, where this whole thing of ethics starts and, when it ties into how we apply ourselves when it comes to education. So I was sitting at my dining table and I was busy with some work, and then my daughter is grade 10. And I see her reading something, and then she takes a phone and she's like just firing away, and I'm just like, what is this child doing? And then I say to her, what are you doing? Why are you on your phone? You've got your textbooks, so use that, and what are you doing with the phone? She says, well, I'm talking to ChatGPT. I said, okay, well, what are you asking it? Well, I'm asking it this exact question that the teacher's given me. And then she starts writing that down, exactly what it's given her. So I say to her, okay, so you'll know about ChatGPT, but did your teacher explain to you that ChatGPT sometimes lies? Do you know about that? So how are you going to check that what ChatGPT is giving you is actually correct? And she looked at me and she's like, well, I didn't know about that. The teacher just told me use ChatGPT. So exactly what the point the gentleman was talking about, our kids will never understand that, where we had to go to the library, go and look at that card with the catalog, or pull the book out and, really absorb ourselves into the literature. Now it's just at a click of a button, and they're too lazy. The mind has become too lazy. They don't want to even critically think about anything. So that was just something very funny, that I thought, well, you know what, but on a larger scale, it was concerning, because I thought, well, if it's my daughter and, she's going to quite a good school, it may not be a private school, but it's quite a good school, what are the teachers actually teaching these kids? But it also goes back to, what is the school doing to teach these teachers how to teach the kids? Because that's where the bigger problem is, right? Okay, so what is certain about the future of education? We know it's here to stay. I think the previous two speakers spoke about it ad nauseum in terms of, we're living in 4IR, AI is here, it's not going anywhere. It's a paradigm shift in terms of how we think about higher education. Okay, and it's an evolving dialogue. There's going to be continuous questions about, how do we get by this? How do we ensure that, we are not compromising academic integrity when, we are using these kind of tools? And I think it also gives us a chance to also look at, how do we look at pedagogy? How do we reshape this pedagogy to sort of align with this? Because we're not going to get away from it, right? We're not going to get away from it. I think if we keep on, and that's why I put there the double-edged sword, it's got the benefits, but it's on the other hand, we need to find a balance in this. So if we're going to keep on saying to students, we want to test you if you're cheating, because if you're using AI, then you're cheating, we actually not fixing the problem. I think, we're just kind of making it worse. And I think this is where we, as higher education advocates, we need to start thinking differently about how we're going to actually integrate artificial intelligence, right, into the student experience. And we need to try and show students, and I think that comes also back to us as well, what the gentleman was talking about, how much is an institution doing to train us as well as supervisors? Because sometimes we get a student who comes in and actually they're more tech savvy than us. And they're doing all these wonderful things, and you then, it's like, I'm a born before technology. I don't understand how these things work. And then you're not in a space where you can actually, advise that student better. It's not just about you doing a research and it's about the content, but I think it's about the applicability, about your ethics on how you're actually executing that research. So that's something that we need to really think about. And, because these people don't just become our students, they become graduates, they go out into the workforce. And as ambassadors, of the university, if they put in a situation where they, off the topic, they've got an international delegation that's come in, and they said in 2 minutes, come in and talk about something. They can't talk about something that was actually the field that they were experts, in. So it's something we really need to think about. And yes, we have the Viva, we've got this oral defense that's happening. And as Prof said as well, people find they're very clever how they use this. They can go and say, here's my PhD thesis, which you actually did for me. Now tell me some of the questions that they may possibly ask me, and give me the answers, in the most academic sound way that I can respond. So there are ways that they can still get around this. Okay, so I just want to talk about the UNESCO Global Survey. I'm not sure if many of you looked at this. It was their Learning Week, Digital Learning Week, 2nd to the 5th of September. And they conducted a survey. They had about 400 responses. It was from the UNESCO chairs, and it was about 90 countries. But what they actually found, that 9 out of 10 people are actually using the AI, right? And it's not just students. I'm talking about supervisors. Educators are using it. And they're not just using it in a sense of for their students. It's also helping them with tedious tasks. Let's be honest. There's one thing that academics talk about is we hate administration. The administration toll is so much, I spend more time on administration as opposed to supervising my students. And here's a way. They can do simulations, they can do lesson plans. There's many ways that they can actually use it. Okay, so UNESCO's survey was actually, it was quite informative in terms of it is out there, people are adopting it, people are using it. But on the flip side of it, what they did find out also was that people had a lot of uncertainty, especially when it came to like data protection, the social justice part of it. So from a more humanistic perspective, people were using it, but they weren't really sure about it. And I think when it came to the academic integrity part of it as well, people were not really sure about it. So here you got this thing churning all this information, packaging it nicely for you. And I think as we went back to the thing about publications, if it's incentivized or if there's pressure, because now we know when we get rankings, we all are pressurized, we need to produce. And when we produce, we're the best university. But I think when those kind of pressures are placed on supervisors or academics within a higher education institutions, that is where we sometimes see that people, although you may have a value system, you may have a moral compass, that compass starts going crazy at some point because you actually don't know how to balance it out. Okay, and then the Anthropic Education Report, August 2025, they were looking at Claude AI, the free and the pro accounts. So they looked at some of the, it was anonymized, so they looked at some of the conversations that people were having, and they found that educators, as I said, are using AI in and out of the classroom. It's not only in the classroom, they're using it even out of the classroom, right? Educators are not just using chatbots, they're building it, they're customizing it to help them get through the, the difficult or I'd say the workload part of it, right? And again, grading rubrics, they're using it as chemistry simulations, data visualization dashboards, and they also tend to automate the drudgery, right, while staying in the loop of everything. So here they're designing their lessons. How do they advise students? Looking at it as, if they're looking at writing grant proposals. So they are using it at an exponential rate. Some educators are also automating grading, although that I know, as they stated, there was sort of a balance in, or maybe there were less that were more for the grading and more that were kind of opposed to it in terms of, are we really going to leave an AI to actually grade 500 students, So I guess that, as I say, the dialogue is always sort of evolving in terms of just like the subject itself in AI. There's all these new tools coming out, which is the most safe tool to use, and we know with our students, we know that they are very tech savvy. My 15-year-old can probably do something on a phone that will probably take me maybe a day to figure out. And she takes my phone and she just does something and like, how do you know this? So we actually have, I said the born before technology, we have the ones born in technology. And that's the only language that they know. So how do we break that, or how, I think it's not about breaking it, how do we actually embrace it? So some people actually look at the small start approach, and there were some case studies, University of Louisiana, UMass Lowell, Arizona State University. I've put the link there because for sake of time, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but these universities have looked at starting on a small, sort of a small scale and how they build that up, because it's also a bit of change management, right? It's not something people are used to. And if we look at our age group, I think we grew up with the libraries and, the cataloging part of it, going through Google Scholar. Now it's different. This is not what these students are using. They will just go into a nice bot and say, well, here's a research question. I want you to pull all the relevant sources, from all these whatever non-predatory journals, pull it and put it together and, synthesize it for me so I can understand it, right? So these people actually looked at how they were going to implement, but in a very stage by sort of step by step, so that it was something that was not just shoved or the people that weren't really used to it had to take some time to get used to it. But they did have a lot of success in terms of, some of the things that they implemented. So please, this will be shared. You can go and look at the link and it will give you the information. Okay, now I'm going to get to my experience with the postgraduate diploma. So I was doing 2 modules. I taught the assessment of postgraduate research and research ethics in postgraduate supervision. And what I found was very interesting when I set out the assessments. So the cohorts. Let me first explain the cohorts that formed part of this this qualification. It was up and coming novice supervisors, people that were finishing their PhD or finished their PhD, were looking to become supervisors, right? And some of them I had taught in 2024, and I was now teaching in 2025. And when I put these, the short tasks and the assignments together, I obviously looked at the course outline and to make sure that the learning outcomes were achieved. And when I did get these assessments, what I did notice, it was like somebody that was in 2024 and you were writing very badly, and suddenly in 2025, this is reading like It's reading like a publication, you know. And at first I was marking, and then I was, no man, something's not right here, because every single one is looking like this. You know, it's looking like something that you would take a journal, and it's like you're reading a journal. It was, even though I know these are supervisors, some people are supervising, some are new supervisors, some are doing PhD, but it was not gelling in terms of what I know I experienced in 2024 with the writing and what I'm seeing in 2025. So I think the dialogue there was not about that they were cheating or anything to that effect. What I also did understand from a cultural perspective, we also have people that come with backgrounds where English is not a first language. You know, the thought process is there, they know what they want to say, but they can't actually say it in the way they want to say it, right? And I think that the big take from here was that these people know about the AI, but I don't think they were actually informed of what it means to use it in a responsible and an ethical and a transparent way. So I went to the director and I said, well, I'm seeing something here, but I also don't want to just, you know, the student's integrity is also important, right? I don't want to just, and we did not actually, in the UJ policy, we didn't actually have something solid in terms of saying, if you find this, what would be the consequence of it? So I consulted with the SREC chair, and I said, this is the issue that I have. I've put it through these 2 or 3 different things. It's showing me that it's AI-generated text, right? But also, the other problem that I had, I used like 3 different sort of platforms, and the 3 were giving me 3 different percentages. So there was no consistency as well. So how do I then make this a case? But I think it always fell back to the student's integrity and, you know, looking at developing the student and giving the student the benefit of the doubt. So I went back to the students and I said to them, listen, I'm marking, but I'm picking up that there's AI usage here. So what you would need to do is you have to declare, you know, how much of what you've used and how much of it have you used. And I think it was a bit of a shocker for some of them, you know, and it was ironic because it was a research ethics module. And I think part of it was talking about AI as well, right? I was teaching them what they should be doing, but they were, in terms of their assessments, they were doing they were doing something that they were taught not to do. So these students still, in any event, they sent through their emails and then said, okay, I'm now telling you this is what I used and that is what I used. But I think the big take from this is, and I think for me it was that, when I sat and I thought about it and I said, you know, how much training is there? How much training is higher education, you know, institutions giving our supervisors to actually better seat them to train their students as well? Because remember, when they're sitting in the class, they're not a supervisor, they're also a student, right? It was actually indicating a gap. There is a gap there, there's a big gap. So I think for me, it was, you know, how would we, as advocates for higher education, try and get this message across to people to say, when you are a supervisor or when you are a student, these are the things that you don't do and these are the things that you do, right? And it goes back. Now, that's why I was talking about my daughter. And I think you spoke about, you know, at the undergraduate level, but I think it goes way before that. It starts at the school level, right? And how are those educators educated on these things? Because those students filter into our institutions, right? And trying to then break something at that point or teach them otherwise for something that's so ingrained, it becomes very difficult, right? So that's just something I want to leave you with. I think I'm passionate about that as well in terms of how do we, at that level, start already nurturing and I think growing the university student while they're already at that school level. Okay, so that was just my experience, right? And with UJ, I mean, we've got the UJ academic misconduct policy that's currently under review. We didn't actually have an AI sort of clause to it, and I think that was where the difficulty lay as well. There was so much of uncertainty in terms of if it was detected, what do you do, right? How do you deal with it? And I'm not just talking about from a disciplinary point of view. There has to be sort of a rehabilitation sort of thinking behind this because it is something fairly new. It is something that all higher education institutions are battling with, right? And I think it's good. I learned a lot from Prof. From Northwest as well, that we engage in these sort of collaborative talks, you know, on what is our stance as higher education when it comes to, you know, AI usage in our environments. So we do have the UJ academic misconduct policy, and I actually spoke to the SREC chair, he's quite busy with this, with the registrar, and on his permission, I was actually able to then, take a screenshot of this. This is what he put in the policy. It's obviously going for review, but it's very short at this point. I must say it's succinct, but it's something that obviously needs to be expanded. But one thing he did say was, it's not something that university is shying away from. I mean, UJ, we always used to chant, our mantra was, we are the 4IR forerunners. Everything was 4IR, and this is part of it. So now we just need to find a way of how do we best embrace it, right? And one thing that he said is, yes, it's here, but the problem that we're having is about getting that ethical part of it, about the training part of it, about creating awareness about it. Because sometimes I don't even think when students are using certain things, they even understand that it's an AI. It's become so part of life that, okay, I just, I open this and I can just ask it. It's like Google, we said everybody wants to self-diagnose. You got an earache and then you start Googling, why is my right ear paining? Then you want all these sort of answers to come back to you. And I think it's that kind of thing where everything is so accessible. As the gentleman said, it's not like where we were. And I think we can be appreciative of the fact that we no longer need to sit and go through 20 or 50 journal articles and try and, put it together. We have a way of how we can actually now do much more, work in a shorter space of time, but not without compromising academic integrity. University of Leeds actually had a very nice thing that they did. So they, when I spoke about pedagogy, this is something that they looked at, because they realized, what, we can't get away from this. So how do we not discourage the students, but how do we make the students understand that it is not the only source and it's not always telling you the truth. As you said, it sometimes hallucinates when it doesn't know what to say. So they actually did two exercises. One where they said to the students, they said, here's a statement from ChatGPT, right? It was some philosophical statement that ChatGPT made, and they said to the students, right, pull this thing apart now, and I want you to give me your thoughts on it. And I think that was a way of how they were still using AI, but what they were doing is they were showing the student, you know what, you're using this, you've got the statement, but you need to think beyond the statement. Apply what you have knowledge as well, and critically then talk about this thing, what you think about it. The second exercise that they did was they gave them an assignment and said, okay, there's questions, put your answers and how you want to answer it. Right now, running through ChatGPT, let ChatGPT give their set of answers, right? And that's where the student was finding this, it was like it's disjointed. Like we said, sometimes these tools, if it's a very European sort of context, then it's not going to look at the African part of it, right? And you're going to find that if you're sitting in a class, you in Africa, right, and you put all your answers down that's talking to your context, and suddenly, say, run it through that, and it's giving you something completely different. And I think what they tried to do there was to show the students that you cannot take the human out of it. You will still have to have the human in it, no matter what you do, right? Because remember, ChatGPT is not just suddenly going to open up on your phone and start telling you things. You are the person that's asking it the stuff. But critical thinking has to happen in there for you to even have to ask it the question. Right, but if we look at things like, I'm going to use a silly example, but I don't know how many of you watched the film, I don't know if it was House or Good Doctor. And then you see these interns, they've got a problem and they can't figure this thing out. And you see them sitting around a table and they've got all these books, and then you've got a patient there that basically has 1 hour. So the head doctor comes and says, we've got 1 hour to sort this out because we don't know what's wrong with this. Now here's where AI comes in, because you can say, well, here's the symptoms, pull everything together, So I think it's just about when we want to use this or we want to teach how this is used, we also want to make people understand and our students understand that there needs to be something that's a societal good that's coming out of it, right? And we also need to make them understand that when they go out into the world as ambassadors, brand ambassadors, right? And when you are asked a question in a boardroom and you cannot answer that, it's going to say a lot about you. Well, not so much about you, Jay, but it's going to say a lot about you, that you basically don't know what you're doing. So as supervisors, I think it is difficult to get that sort of balance with our students as well. I mean, we've got these governance documents where we say transparency, active engagement, human agency and contribution. We can say all these things to our students, but I think there's bigger issues that our students are also dealing with, and there's bigger issues that our supervisors are dealing with as well. So, some of the recommendations, I've given you the UNESCO survey. It comes from there, the 13 policy areas that they were speaking about. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every area, but it's actually quite a good read. And I think if all higher education starts looking at this, using it as a framework within which they can start looking at their policies and how we adopt this, obviously, it's a global thing, so it's taking into account the Asias, the Americas, the Africas, all of that. It's not something that's just contextualized in the Western world. So we need to just look at how we can drive these recommendations. So some of the things I think we were talking about in the room, prioritize AI literacy for all stakeholders. That's not only for students. I think some supervisors are slightly embarrassed also to say, you know what, I actually don't know how a chatbot works. I don't know how this AI tool works. There's no shame in that. Okay, we know the traditional way of how we're doing it. We're still getting our papers out. We're doing it the traditional way. But I think it's in our best interest to learn how these things work. If we are going to be of any value to our students, we're going to have to also pivot, and we're going to have to, learn the new ways. Because if we look at it from a business perspective, if we say UJ is a company, who are our clients? It's our students. So we need to make sure that our product is also aligned in terms of market demands. So if our students are using AI, we need to make sure, supervisors, that we, our institution, drives that of prioritizing that there is some sort of, literacy programs, training and development to assist us. And also some of the recommendations was the redesign of assessment from product to process. So yeah, I think it's what I was speaking about as well. It's, it's not just about creating a graduate as well. It's the process of creating a graduate. That's the important thing. It's not just getting that certificate at the end of the day. It's the journey that they've been through. Because remember, what we set as examples for our student as a supervisor, it feeds forward because they're going to be supervising another student, and it's a vicious cycle. So we need to be the change. And I think this is the hardest one. Establish a human-governed, transparent, ethical framework. And I know we're always talking about ethics. I know at UJ we've got ethics committee, and I know on the table there were talks as well about, look, we look at all these type of different ethics, but we actually need to have an expert in AI that's sitting in there that talks about the ethics around AI usage, right? So I know Prof showed the declaration form. We've got those forms that need to be completed, but at that proposal stage already, before we go through all other stages, I think at that stage, there needs to obviously be guidance, not just for the student, but the supervisor as well that's supervising the student, in terms of from an expert to say, these are some of the things that, you can sort of, do, or things that you should not be doing. And empower educators with training and resources. I think comes back to the first one, the AI literacy part of it for students, but also empower the educators. If we are not educated on how to educate our students, we're never going to solve the problem. Okay, we're going to be back here. We're going to be talking about this all over again, and it's just going to be a never-ending loop. Okay, and these are my references. If anybody wants to use them, I'm more than happy to share it with Lorenzo. Please click on them, read. It's mostly articles, but they were very, very informative. So if you want to look at the 11 policy areas, I think that if you're going back to a different higher education institution as well, that's maybe something. It's UNESCO's latest report. So it's got all relevant and current information. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pillay. Colleagues, now the floor is open. Doc, can just remain here. We have to take questions.
I'm between y'all and the lunch.
I know, it's that time. Questions to the online audience? Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really interesting, your presentation. But the UNESCO thing, I was wondering about, were you there beginning of September in Paris now?
No, I wasn't there. Unfortunately, budget is an issue. But no, I actually, through my research, I picked up some of the stuff that was there in
Okay.
terms of, and I just pulled what was relevant. I saw
Yeah.
that UNESCO had this in their digital week. So some of the recommendations are actually quite good.
Yeah.
I thought it's something that universities could look at, obviously from a contextual space as well, and how that relates in terms of what's specifically happening in our university.
Yeah, I could not attend myself, but two colleagues were there, and they said it was interesting how there's a pushback towards AI, and people are not, at least the Europeans, are not encouraging people to use it. And I was just wondering if you're aware of that and what you're thinking,
Yeah.
because we are all under pressure to be upfront with technology and use it.
Absolutely.
But now we hear this, I would say, strong voice from them.
Yes. So in terms of the results that they got back from the 400 responses, that was some of, that's why I said there has to be that balance in between. So they found that 9 out of 10 people were using it, but they were using it with that sense of reluctance as well. There wasn't a clear understanding. So as I said, it's this new thing, as you said, the new kid on the block. Everybody wants to use it, but sometimes people are not aware of what does it mean to actually responsibly and ethically use it. So I think that's where the disjuncture was, that people said, yes, maybe for these kind of things you can use it, but when it comes to maybe grading, there was an extreme sort of where the attendees were like, or the responses were like, no, we cannot rely on something like this to be, grading our students. This is something that should be, the sole responsibility of the person that's facilitating. So yes, it wasn't where it's an outright thing. I think it was more an awareness on in terms of Digital Week, from the 2nd to the 5th, as I said, and they were just talking about as I said, the ever-evolving dialogue on this, and what are people actually, what's actually happening globally? Are people using it? If they're using it, how much of it are they using it? Do they understand, what comes with it when they use it? So I think that's where that survey was sort of, more aligned to say, how are people sort of, what's the response in terms of AI in the education sphere? So I'm aware of that. I just didn't want to, I brought a whole stack of stuff to share with you all, but given the time, as Ensa said, I'm not going to go through all the stats, but I've put the link, so please open it and have a look at it. There's also, out of that, I think there was also in 2021, UNESCO also did a recommendation report where higher education or education specifically was looking at using AI, and they gave some recommendations or guidelines on how institutions can maybe, adopt that into their institutions. So maybe just have a look at those as well. It's in that link. If you open up the UNESCO link, the documents are there for you to actually review.
Thanks so much. I mean, it's quite overwhelming, on, at the lowest level. So three things. The first, you spoke about pedagogies, and I'm wondering, in terms of the institution, you're in policy. In terms of the institution, what's the learning theory that's guiding the implementation of AI tools? Specifically, I'm speaking in the library, but also anything that's that students are being given access to, but also supervisors and staff. So that's the first question. The second is the institution intending to do research on the outcomes? So we've got a lot of data, you know who's downloading which application, who's using what, when, how. And in some way, and you've got other information on students, like their success rates, all of these kinds of things. Is there an intention to identify outcomes? Because it's one thing to say this thing is here, we have to use it, we have to know how to use it. But we have no idea of what the eventual outcome is going to be. But we do have the data to try to understand. Is there an intention from the institution to understand this? Maybe let me stop there.
Okay, so for your first one, you asked me about what sort of theory we'll use when you talk about pedagogy. So I think each discipline is very different in terms of how they approach that. right? And Vice Dean Research and your Vice Deans of Teaching and Learning are continuously looking at that in terms of, what are the methods that we can use to encourage that critical thinking and that academic integrity, but also in the same instance, as I said, we have a market of students that's very different from 20 years ago. So how do we also embrace that and ensure that we're getting the best of both worlds? So that's something, it's beyond my pay grade. Let me just declare that. But I think if I'm just going to say outrightly from my thinking perspective, I think it's driven by area specialization and how they then adapt the pedagogy to that. Okay, so for example, engineering may have a specific way of how they want to do simulations in the, what you call this, when they go on site. How would they do simulations in that way for their students that are still sort of at the undergraduate level? So it creates sort of a learning environment that's sort of online. It's not actually hence I'd say like an augmented reality kind of thing, but where they can actually interact with that. So just something off the top of my head. So I would think that's the way the university's approach would be. So each one of them would have to look at it, how it is applicable to them, specifically to their field, and then look at how they will drive that from their end. Then the second question you asked me was about, sorry, brain fog. Oh, the data. Yeah. Okay, that I will need to get back to you because I don't actually have that data. It would be, I think, housed specifically with CAT. So those are the people that deal with all our sort of learning management systems and all of that. And I'm not going to say there isn't. I'm pretty sure there is something because UJ is always doing things like that where they're trying to use the data that we have and try and look at other, whatever issues we have and how we can sort of create a narrative to that in terms of what kind of recommendations can be put forward to better it. So I'm not from CAT, I won't be able to answer that. I'm not sure. I think Anu, you can, right? Okay, can I pass the mic to you?
Thank you. Yes, I also wanted to say something and just say a very good presentation as well. Yes, CAT has got data about that. I'm also involved in that research, how it's going into the ethics policy. Everybody's policing, but at this stage, there's a lot of guidelines leading to a policy, because policies take too long to formulate and to finalize, and it also takes really long to change it again because of the rapid changes in technology and the AI. So yes, and related to what you also said about students using the AI, we are the same. If you tell a child not to pick their nose, they're going to do that. And that's how it gets in, how we we discovered all of this, and people wanted a quick fix. They want instant gratification, and we just don't want to do this anymore. We want something that's accurate, or we think that is accurate, and it comes back to us. And the second thing I wanted to say, that conference last week, I was privileged that my director was at that one in Paris. So yes, she brought, and we're working with it now, a competency framework, guidelines for Gen AI in educational research, and the competency framework for teachers. And it's all on that website that you've also given. I was just lucky to get the hard copies
You're very lucky.
of those. So UJ's policy is also involved in all this.
I think another thing that I want to just getting back to, when I think institutions, when COVID happened, something changed phenomenally at that point, because even AI before that, it was there, but it wasn't such a, it didn't become such a big issue. But I think because once we had that sort of, where we had to do sort of disaster management and make sure there was business continuity, everybody started to sort of look at it in a very different lens in terms of how we approach pedagogy, how are we approaching teaching? Because now educators had to also look at a different way. Everything went online. How do we ensure that assessments that are being done online, students are not cheating, or we're not compromising the marking, the quality is not being compromised. So I think with that, it's also, that's the reason, well, I feel that's maybe partially the reason why this whole AI dialogue became such a big thing. It's because when the next, God forbid, but when the next event happens, we want to be ready. We don't want to be where, we're on a shutdown and then, everything is at a halt. We want to be able to, have an immediate response to it. So I think during that time, in the loneliness of not coming to face-to-face lectures, and, students then found the comfort of, as well, to kind of relate to these kind of tools to help them through it as well. I think there's bigger things, in terms of what happens in a higher education institution. You have students that are dealing with a lot of things as well. And sometimes the quick fix is the easiest thing. And it's not necessarily an indication of them being a bad student. It may be a resultant of just consequences or circumstances. So I think there's a larger thing to it as well. Even with this, with AI, I mean, we've got students that also are not tech savvy. They may be born in technology, but they are not tech savvy. They may not be so, easy to do what other students are doing as well. So in a sense, we're talking about using AI, but it may benefit the ones that are actually just good at this and can know how to sort of maneuver with this and let it work for them. But you may also have the other spectrum of the students that just don't know how to work it. They don't know how to use it to actually benefit them. So yeah, but as you said, ever-evolving dialogue. So I guess what we're doing here in this room is very important. And also, I think it's important, supervisors are the people, the champions that can bring forward or bring forth the issues that they are seeing that students are having as well. Because you are the ones that are in closest contact with the students. So it's maybe something, that can feed forward and help the university as well to better understand, how we can create a good sort of embracing AI, but also ensuring that we are upholding academic integrity.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. I'm just going to keep you there for another minute. We've got two comments on the chat. The first one, let's get up to it here. So the first one is from Khaled, and the comment is, thank you so much, Dr. Pillay. The detection of misconduct using AI unethically is still debatable among experts developing detection tools. So how will the detection process happen? Then they got in brackets here, Turnitin or other tools. How this process can be validated if many of these tools mention that the detection reports can have false positives and they are not yet reliable 100%.
Thank you for that question. I think I'm also waiting with bated breath on how we will detect this, because yes, we do have, we were using it for a long time, Turnitin, plagiarism similarity index, but it's not always, I think as a supervisor, you told as well, don't just take that report at face value. You need to go and you need to check with your student, right? And I think I gave my experience where I pushed a few of these, if not all of them, through 3 different platforms. It gave me 3 different percentages. And then my thing was, okay, let me ask the SREC chair, because I'm not sure, because in the policy, there's nothing in the policy that's actually guiding me in terms of how I should be able to deal with this. So I think this is a conversation that universities, specifically, I'm going to talk about UJ now. It's sort of the hot topic in terms of how we also don't want to see it as like a punitive measure, because you remember, on the one hand, we're also saying, are we encouraging all these things? But we also need to ensure that we have governance in place in terms of, should we be faced with this, what do we have put into place that can help us? So I can't answer the question to say what tools they are. I mean, the university will have to then look at that, and we'll have experts in AI that will, probably sit in a room and discuss this, so that it's a well-informed sort of directive in terms of, how we take it forward.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. And there's one last question from Tembesile, who says, the talk was really insightful. I am concerned about the reputational risk that comes with AI from a supervisor's perspective. Postgraduate students are truly savvy when we debate the unethical use of AI. one keeps getting the question, what is the threshold for using AI and how would one address that? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's where the policy is going to be very important. You saw what I put up there. It was, as I said, a very succinct sort of version of what we would like to be in the academic misconduct policy. But if it comes back to, you know, how, and I think I'm going to go back to what Prof was talking about every step of the process of the research, the supervisor needs to be engaged. So some supervisors also have, there's different ways of how you can do the supervision as well, right? If you look at group supervision, that's also a nice way of how you have your students sitting in there, you create the dialogue, you let them talk. And then you also have a little bit of a budding up system as well. If students are uncertain about certain things, they've got other students that they can actually, you know, sort of converse with. But I think a supervisor plays a very important role in trying to detect that. Now, I mean, I was just doing facilitation and I picked it up. It wasn't even supervising, it was just assessments. And because I knew the students writing from the year before, something just didn't click there. It was something that was kind of off. If you are meeting with your student regularly and you are having a conversation with your student, and if you are asking the right questions, I think you're going to be able to pick up if your student is writing using AI. It's not going to be difficult, right? Like Prof said, you had 2 bad iterations and then suddenly the third one comes in 2 weeks, you've become a writing pro, right? So I think you just, as a supervisor, we need to also train our minds to not overlook these things. Sometimes we're so busy, we have so many students, right? And you want to just get through it. I mean, my student, each thing that where I see something, a statement, I'll say, tell me who's the source. And then I will go and I'll look for the source. Or I'll tell her, provide me the source. I want to see where this is you saying. I want to see it. So those are the kind of things I think us as supervisors need to start redoing. Because we're working with volumes of students, we understand that. And I know there's a pressure in terms of university saying throughput, we got to drive it, but we cannot compromise the quality. Because at the end of the day, when the student goes out, it's a student you supervised. Right? And as I said, the feed forward is not good if they're going to be a supervisor. It's going to be replicating what they saw as you doing as a supervisor becomes what they think a supervisor should be doing. So I think it's very important us as supervisors, what we are doing. I know students will say, well, yeah, but tell me what percentage. And the percentage and all of that can come from how it's going to be done in terms of from a governance point of view. That's what the university can decide by benchmarking with other institutions and seeing what's being done out there. But I'm talking about when you're having face-to-face with that person that needs to be adhering to that governance document, you have a responsibility as a supervisor as well. So if you are not having that, I mean, I think we did a postgraduate experience survey. It was not many of them, but there were a few of them that said, I have not seen my supervisor in 6 months. I mean, that is dismal. You cannot have that. And then suddenly the student comes and pops up a PhD and you're too lazy to look through that and you're not going to ask questions. So I think it's one thing about ethics on AI, but we need to get back to grassroots ethics as well in the terms of how are we ethically supervising. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pillay. Colleagues, I know it's time for lunch and people are hungry, but we can give Dr. Pillay a round of applause. That brings us to the end of our presentations for today, colleagues. We would like to thank all our facilitators or presenters of today, Dr. Anolu, Prof. Eni Fervuk, and Dr. Vaneshri Pillay, and also Dr. Kali, who is from Australia. Thank you so much, colleagues, for those wonderful presentations that we witnessed today. We hope the colleagues who have attended, those who are here with us, they will take something home today with whatever they've learned today, and also to share with their students, those who are supervising, and to the colleagues who are online as well. Thank you so much, colleagues, and also for your engagement throughout the session from the start until now. Thank you for staying with us. And now, just a token of appreciation from the Research Capacity Development Unit, I would like to call upon Dr. Gabriel and Ms. Koketo Pila, who will be giving out the gift to all our facilitators for today. Thank you. Okay, I think I'll go with an order of presentation. I will start with Dr. Anolo. You can come and get your. Thank you so much. Thank you. Colleagues, let's put some life. Like we are almost there. Almost. Thank you, Dr. Ano. Prof. Ferhoof, you can come and get your gift. And finally, Dr. Pillay. Well, once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you, colleagues. To the team for online, we would like you to take your 2 to 3 minutes to fill in the feedback. It will be shared via the chat, or it will be displayed, the QR code will be displayed on the screen. So you can just take your 2 to 3 minutes and fill in the feedback. It helps us in terms of improving our service delivery here at the Research Capacity Development Unit. Also, to the colleagues who are here with us, the feedback is just available on your desk. You can just scan the QR code and give us a feedback, and we will gladly share the reporting, the full report of this workshop or of this session with all our facilitators for today. So the full attendance report as well as the feedback will be shared out probably in about 5 days to come. We will share it with you, colleagues. So thank you so much to everyone. Now I will also call Dr. Gabriel, who will be giving us a vote of thanks. And colleagues, we are 2 minutes away to the important part.
Thank you so much, Gos. I feel like Gosi has already gave a vote of thanks. So I was wondering what am I going to say, but let me start by saying I'm not as young as you might think, right? So I've seen technology evolving. I've used a landline with those fixed telephone lines, right? I've used that. I've also saw an article that was written in 1967 where they were saying one day you will walk with a phone in your pocket. And I don't think in 1967 one would think that really that would be possible, right? So I was reading that article and I was actually saying, but this was something that was unimaginable. I've also seen, the first phones, the mobile phones coming in. In Africa, obviously, we are following, we are sort of trailing, obviously, in other parts of the world that would have already been something that was well known of. But I saw that bigger phone. I was trying to look for an object to compare it to. I think it was much bigger than this. Those Nokia 7110 with a big battery and very heavy. I've seen that. I've seen the 5110, and it started becoming smaller, more engaging. Then cameras started coming, and all those transitions that have happened. So when I was listening to these presentations, we also see an advancements as well on the research space as well, that have led us to where we are today. I've always had a conversation with my colleagues, with our director about this issue of AI. And my opinion was that to really keep up with the advancements in technology in terms of having AI detectors and so on, I don't really think that would be something that is feasible. When you do something today, tomorrow there's another tool that counter what has been done today and so on and so on. But I'm really happy with the space that now seem to have been assumed, where we are embracing, the use of AI in a manner that is responsible. And we are now also developing, sort of AI policies where the issue of declaration is now becoming the sort of the one that is central. I really, I'm grateful of the presentations. Previously this task of giving a vote of thanks was so simple. You just come and then you just thank the organizers, you thank the facilitators, then you point the rest of the audience to the food. But I would just try to, give a bit of, what is it that we got from the presentations that were done today by the different facilitators. I think Dr. Lau, he guided us through the AI as a neural gateway, and I think from that it really opened our minds to the transformative potential of AI in learning and supervision. Something that we are grateful of, and a great insight that came out of this gathering that we are having today. Then we went on to Dr. Kali, who sort of shared insights that I deemed to be valuable in building a trusting supervision relationship. I think it's very important that the supervisor-student relationship should be one of a trusting one. I stand to be corrected, but it's because of when I was, when I started my postgraduate journey. I attended a workshop where they said, no, the student-supervisor relationship is not just about the outputs, right? It should also even go beyond the academic aspects, right? It should be one that, sometimes it's even important just to take your students out. I see Prof doing that a lot, and we don't say it, but we actually, I just say this is what I heard of, some years back. But unfortunately, many students, they don't really see that. It's just a relationship of what are you doing for me and what am I getting out of this. So I think that was a reminder of sort of the human connection that underpins effective supervision that we received from Dr. Kelly. Then Prof. Verhoef illuminated the possibilities of AI assisted research methodology. So I think we are using it. We are already using AI. I think sometimes it is important. I'm thinking it's very practical. It's sooner or later. Like I'm saying, we are already using it. So I think it's work that you have to sort of continue. Working on, and one day that this will be a reality for us, just like these advancements in technology that I've been talking of things that we could not imagine back in 1967. Then going to what Dr. Pillay have presented to us, encouraging us of responsible usage of AI. So that declaration, okay, I feel ashamed to say I've used AI, honestly. I don't want to lie. I feel ashamed. So it's like you're not thinking. It's so we have associated it with that. I've also seen that I've written before AI. I have some research that I've done that is there in the public domain that I've written without AI. I also struggle to draw the line whereby, because now even if you are good, a good writer is now being also associated as you have used AI. If you write a good piece of writing, when people see it, those who do not know possibly of your history and so on, they link that to AI. But Dr. Pillay helped us to navigate the ethical and policy considerations in this issue of generative AI that is rapidly evolving. I think with that, sort of a summary of the take home, of that came out of these engagements and the engagements that we also had with those who were online. I want now to offer our gratitude to all the participants who have joined us here physically, those who have also joined us online, the engagements that we had, the questions the contributions, your presence and your participation, it have enriched the discussions that we had today, and we are thankful as the research capacity development to that. We also thank the facilitators. It's not an easy task, first of all, just accepting, honoring, the invitation for you to come and share with us the knowledge that you have, the expertise that you have in these areas. We are really grateful to, we are really grateful of that. We also think that, the organizers, there's a lot that goes in the background. Sometimes you say, I'm really, she call it donkey work. Yeah, the donkey work, that what happens in the background. It's a lot that happens in the background that lead up to this event that we are having today. We also thank even the media team, Kevin and the whole team, all the effort that you put, traveling, coming up, setting up, and so on. We are really grateful of that, and also thanks to Prof as well, for your leadership. You are the one who guide us in everything that we do. So as I let me say, as we close the session, let's take this knowledge that we have gained from here, the insights, the strategies that has been shared today. Let's take them forward. Knowledge is perpetual. It's something that should continue. And let's continue to foster ethical, responsible, and innovative supervision practices in the age of AI. And with this, I thank you. And I just want to ask that before we partake in, having our lunch as well as sort of a networking session, let's go and have a group photo first, then we can come back and we sort of indulge in the lunch that we have prepared for you, and also an opportunity for networking, amongst ourselves. Thank you, all those who are present here physically, and also thanks to those who are online. I hand over back to Nkos.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel, for the closure and the vote of thanks speech. And as Dr. Gabriel has already mentioned, we are officially closing today's event. It was very fruitful, very insightful, and we are very grateful to the presenters for giving us such insightful knowledge. And I hope that we're going to go and implement what we have learned. We're going to go and think about, our practices and, evolve with the times. So as Dr. Gabriel has also mentioned again, can we please just go outside for a photo, and then we will come back and indulge in lunch. And for the online audience, thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget to complete the feedback survey on the chats. And thank you for just taking the time to be with us online throughout the session until now. Thank you for not logging out. And we are officially closing the session. Thank you very much.